I'm going to show you the process I used and how I managed to scale to over 20 Airbnb properties, as well as showing you 3 areas that are performing right now and who I use as one of my main furniture suppliers. So the first thing that I did was went online and started to look for between 3 and 5 of the best performing locations in the country right now. Now, the main piece of software we're going to use to find this is something called AirDNA. This is going to enable us to research multiple locations in the country and find our 3 to 5 top performing areas. So I've done some research and I found 3 areas that I think will be quite good, and that is Mid Wales, the Lake District and the Peak District. Now, while these are doing well, I would assume it's the time of year. I mean, we're in December right now, so I would assume that people are wanting to go to more sort of places that are out in the countryside. This doesn't mean that these places are going to do well in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years from now, or whether there's a particular spike in these areas because of this time of year. You're better off much more knowing how to find good areas properly, learning the information that we teach. But for the sake of this video, this is what I'm going to do. Next thing I do is I like to research good properties in which to potentially call. Now, I tend to use Rightmove and OpenRent to do this, and I'm looking for properties that I think could have a nice unique appeal to them, and then I normally put these in a spreadsheet so that I can dial them very, very fast. I normally look for about 50 before I start making any calls. A good reason why I like to do this is you can do this at any time. So you can get the list at night when you've just got in from work, or maybe some point in the weekend. You can get this list together, and when you have some free time you can work through that list very efficiently. This is something that I would recommend that everybody do. Keep on top of this list. You want to always make sure that you have properties that are in that database to which you can contact as soon as you've got a bit of free time. This is going to be really, really important to your success. You have to make sure that you keep the dials going. If you don't do this, something you can find is you can spend half an hour, researching a good place to potentially call before you've even started to call, and you've got to make sure that you're efficient, and you've got to make sure that you're frequent when it comes to making these phone calls. As soon as you've got a bit of free time, just start dialing. Now, the next thing I do is contact agents and landlords. When I'm contacting agents, I'm asking them 3 simple questions. Is the agency open to a company let agreement? Is the landlord open to a company let agreement? Is there anything that they currently have on their books where the landlord will be accepting of this? Now, not all agencies do company let agreements, not all of them have the right contracts in place, so just move on if they do not have that. They're not going to be persuaded by someone on the phone talking about company let. Now, if they are, then something that I do is I keep a record of that for future notice, so that I know when other properties come up by that agency, at least the agency is open to a company let. Then all I have to do is find out if the landlord is open to that. If I'm contacting landlords, really I'm moving through levels of authority. So first thing I'm doing is I'm complimenting them on the property, saying how great that I think it looks, and then I'm wanting to try and book a call in with them. And then again, I move through the progressions. When they're open to a company let agreement, I'll then do a small pitch and explain if they're interested. If they're not, then I'll just move on. And then if they're proceeding to be interested, again, we book the viewing in, we talk a little bit more in person, we see if we can develop a relationship with that landlord and secure that property. Now, I've done some research and I managed to find a 2-bedroom flat in the town centre of Matlock that would be quite a good area. And now I reckon, based on the information and the knowledge that I have and the research that I've done, we can get around between £120 and £160 per night, which, factoring in a 15% management fee and some of the estimated costs that I have, we should come out with around £900 per month in profit for this, based on a 70% occupancy rate. If you want to learn how to do this, for yourself, I'll cover this for free inside of the Airbnb Mastery Academy, so to click the link below to learn how to do that. Something that's going to be really important now is to understand your setup costs, but we need to be able to understand how much is this deal going to cost in order to set up, and that's something I'm going to cover in the next step. So now I'm going to sort of briefly go over this. It's something we cover in a lot more detail inside of the academy, but I want to give people an idea of how much will it cost to set up a sort of deal, because I see a lot of people rely a lot on sources to get with their setup costs out, and a lot of times sources are very, very wrong with these sorts of things. Same with stacking the deal when it comes to the earlier segment, and even understanding areas. A lot of deals are not very good at this. Some things that you are going to need is you're going to need the deal analyzer. If you don't have the Stayful Deal Analyzer, you can access it for free as part of the Airbnb Mastery Academy. Understanding we have a setup cost part of this. I'm going to assume a few things. One is going to be the deposit. So I'm going to assume that there's going to be 1 month rent at £1,200 and 1 month deposit up front. I'm going to assume they want these sorts of things. So I'm going to put this in now. Bedding, I'm going to assume, and it's something I recommend people do, is get linen hire through your cleaners for bedding, because then they're just dealing with it. You pay a bit more on the cleaning fees, but it's going to make your business a lot more systemised, which is going to be very important when it comes to scaling. And then I'm assuming photography at £250. This is quite sort of a standard price when it comes to this. And you see we're looking at around £2,650 at the start. Now when we go into estimating furniture, I'd recommend people use this company. It's called Sublime Furnishings. It's where I get all my furniture from. And the first thing we're going to look at is sofa beds. I'd recommend everyone get sofa beds. It just helps increase your guest capacity and makes you a little bit more unique. So I recommend people get them. So I'm going to add that to cart. I wouldn't recommend anyone gets like dining table and chairs. You can get that from places like Argos. Soft furniture you can get from places like Dunelm. I'm not going to cover this again in the video. We cover it in the academy and I help you through this process. But for the sake of this and to keep it easy, I'm just going to cover using Sublime Furnishings. I recommend people try and use Divion beds. The only time really you wouldn't be able to use Divion beds is if it's like particularly like cramped hallways or anything like that, into which you can just get some metal framed sort of self-assembly beds for that instance. But a lot of the times the Divions are going to work just fine. Again, all this stuff you can get flat pack from Argos, I think, for cheaper. So I don't normally tend to use Sublime for that, so I'm not going to recommend you do either. You can obviously, have a look at this in your own time. If you like the look of it, then obviously go and use it. But for the sake of this, I'm not going to do that. Bathroom pack. I'm going to assume one bathroom just to keep it easy. And again, I like using these people because they take all the rubbish away. They're very reliable with their delivery times, and it just makes the process an awful lot easier. So this is everything I would get from Sublime when setting up a property. And you can see it's looking around £2,490. So I'm just going to put in here £2,490. Now the other things we've got is obviously home furnishings. These are going to include things like throws, and cushions, lamps, all sorts of things like that. Something we haven't got yet, obviously, is all your flat pack stuff. So TV stands, side tables, rugs, tellies, all that sort of stuff. So I'm going to put in here as a cost of, say, £1,400 for this. As an interior design work, I'm going to estimate this is going to be sort of around £450. So this is going to be all like, you're painting your trays and any sort of extra bits. I'd always had a little bit of an extra buffer for the bits because I'd always rather get a property right. And we're looking at around £7,000 to set up this property. Now, if we go into calculations, again, I've based it on £1,200, and then we've got all of our rates in here, which we got from the previous step. And you can see over the course of a year, if we're shooting for a 70% mark, or sorry, 70% occupancy, I should say, it's looking at around £8,000, and we're coming in around £7,000. So this is a good target. Something I'd always have as a budget would be estimated annual profit that you will make of a property over a year. And as long as you're under that budget, then you should be looking quite good. That's normally the recommendation I'd have for anyone understanding the setup costs of your business. Now, the best thing I advise people to do right now is to just get implementing. There's no point learning about lots of different kinds of strategies and lots of different information if you do not implement any of it. So get out there and start making the calls. Something I didn't quite cover in too much detail was how I got to the estimation of £120 and £160 per night. So you can watch this video here and I'll show you how to do that.